is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 7, The Dark Tower, Part 2, Chapters 6 and 7. In these chapters, we get to take a look inside where the Breakers live and work. And it's weirdly chill and seems somewhat pleasant, to be honest. Except for all the acne. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I am Miles, and I don't have any acne today.
Bless your heart. Actually, I don't either. I'm looking in the mirror. It's probably because my all of the disgusting stuff in my body is stuffed up my nose right now.
I mean,
later, once my nose is clear, it'll come out on my face. There's always disgusting stuff. It just chooses how it's going to manifest itself.
Yeah.
That's my philosophy.
That makes sense. I mean, I was about to say that I think maybe it's because I don't live in a radioactive wasteland, but it is, like, really getting hot here way too early. So, fuck Arizona, nobody should live here.
What temperature is it today?
Oh, I don't know, probably like 90-something.
Good God. Yeah, that's way too soon.
It's ridiculous. We had no winter, and now summer's just showed up and told spring to go fuck itself. It's like push spring out of line. It's my turn.
So for everybody, I have not read these books before, and Miles has read them all.
I have. Yeah.
And so, you know, I just said that, like, gross stuff is always in your body and it just chooses how it's going to manifest.
Uh-huh.
My second theory is that gross stuff is always around, but if people are near the rose, then their skin clears up and all that acne goes to this little group of people.
Oh, okay.
You remember how that guy said that his acne cleared up?
Yeah, I like that. So, like, it just transfers to, like, these people trying to break the beams, because fuck them.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
It's a little bit of, like, a weirdly material karma. A really cosmetic, superficial karma.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Which, to be honest, would be pretty effective. Like, I would think more so than, like, a real life-changing kind of karma, because most of us are pretty superficial.
Yeah, and then we're only a few chapters away from that being confirmed as what's actually happening. Shit. Fuck. Sorry. Sorry.
I knew it.
Damn it.
I knew it.
Damn it.
The truth is in the zits.
So mad about this. So terrible about doing this podcast. Anyway, so yeah, this is the let's take a look. At least the first chapter is the let's take a look inside Algolciento, or Devar Toy, or whatever you want to call it. And the second chapter is look at all these guns, we're all gonna die.
Yeah, I think that sums it up.
Which is a weird dichotomy that I kind of wanted to mention, but we'll get there. Maybe we should talk about the prison first.
Okay, sure. Well, okay.
Maybe not. No, it's fine if you don't want to.
Is Pimley somebody that we've met before?
No. But... Is
his last name something that we've seen before?
I don't think so, but it's possible. I know for a fact that that we have heard about Finley Otego before. Because, as I recall, Finley Otego was the person that Ben Slightman was talking to when he, made his report from the Calla.
Okay. That one I didn't even, register at all. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, for some reason, what's Pimley's original name? Peter?
Paul.
Paul. Whatever, similar.
I mean, I hear you rob one to pay the other, but sorry.
I'm gonna Google Prentice right now and see what comes up.
Hold on,
no, why would I do that? That's totally spoiler territory.
I'm Googling it right now. I've already been doing it, so hold on.
Okay, because like I'm just so it's jogging something, and I don't know if it's even anything to do with this series or not. You know, like, but I felt the whole time that I was reading it that like there was a nagging voice going, "You should know who this is," and I've got really nothing to support that except for that annoying feeling that I get at the end of virtually every conversation I have ever had where I swear that I forgot to tell the person something.
I don't think he's shown up before.
Okay.
Not according to either of the wiki pages about him.
Okay. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But yeah, this is such a weird, because like I didn't expect to get such a banality of evil look at the way everything operates here.
Yeah.
But Prentice's like whole attitude, it's one of those things that I really appreciate how King writes him with no attempts at trying to get it to make sense that this guy believes what he believes and is doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, frankly, most of the time, what people do and what people claim to believe in do not match up, and they still firmly believe in what they're doing. And any attempt at like talking with them about it and attempting to understand it or get them to see the dissonance there is totally futile. And my temptation, if I were writing this, would be to try and tie in some sort of like awkward logic around the thing.
Uh-huh.
But King doesn't even really do that. He's just like, Prentice is trying to end the world, and he trusts that when he goes to heaven, that God will still be cool with him.
Yeah.
That's basically all there is.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's pretty much what it boils down to for a lot of people who are really religious and do horrific shit, is they just figure God's fine with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no real thought. Like, and I would just get so caught up in trying to make something that makes sense. And it just doesn't. It inherently doesn't make sense. People don't make sense. We don't. And so writing people who don't make sense makes sense. You see what I did there?
I get it. I like it. I mean...
But yeah, this just caught me by surprise, this whole POV.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that, you know, it does a nice job, like you said, of kind of making him an interesting character, I would say. Like, it's... I really like his relationship with Finley. Like, it's kind of sweet.
Yep.
And it humanizes these people who are attempting to end the world in a way that I'm pretty sure it's difficult to do a lot of the time. You know, but then again, one of them does feed the pus that comes out of a face zit to the other as a delicacy. So there's also that. There's also the reminders that they're the villains of this story.
Oh, God. And again, like, they kept describing, what's his face? Finley as being ferret-faced. And I kept thinking that they meant that as a metaphor. Oh. Until finally they said something about his, like, beady eyes and sharp teeth. And I was like, oh, wait, right.
Well, because like, people do describe people as ferret-faced. Like, that's a thing.
Exactly. Ferret-faced, horse-faced, duck-faced. What's another one? You don't get cat-faced. Frog-faced. You can get that one sometimes.
Horse, duck.
Frog-faced was what's her face? Professor Umbridge.
Right. I mean, in Princess Bride, it's a warthog-faced buffoon. So, you know, there's that.
Dog-faced. Which is just really insulting in general and doesn't actually mean anything to do with the animal. But, you know,
I think...
Fine.
I feel like hawk-faced is a thing.
Huh.
Or at least hawk-nosed.
That's true. Hawk-nosed, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway.
Everybody, I'm, by the way, very sorry about my weird mouth and nose sounds that may be coming through on the mic this week. I'm not feeling great. I'm getting over it finally, but there's still some residual grossness and it's coming out in my voice.
If you had to say your voice like sounded like you were animal faced right now, what would you say it was?
My voice is badger faced.
Badger faced, okay.
Because I'm real like gravelly.
Yeah, and like kind of
badgers like to dig in the ground.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
that works out.
I've got my Phoebe Buffet, sexy, smelly cat. I really need to record those smut casts before this goes away, to be honest.
So back to our podcast about people with animal faces.
Indeed. Or animals with people faces.
True, which we get later.
Which happens later.
Yeah. So, we learn a little bit about Pimley here. Like you said, he's a regular dude who just figures he's doing his job and God will reward him in the end.
Yep.
Like, the worst part about the whole, like, zit thing at the beginning is when he's like, after that's all done, he's like, hey, if you want some more, I could pop another one.
Oh my God, that cracked me. Now listen, I'm going to be honest with everybody here. We're all friends here.
Yeah.
I get off on popping zits, not sexually, but like in a really primal way that's not probably a good look.
Okay.
That Owen will have to hide his back from me at times if he's got anything going on and if he wants any sort of peace and quiet. Because I will just be on him like, no, let me get it. Come on, it's a big, just let me get it. So, to a degree, there were moments there where I was like, this is sort of weirdly satisfying, even though I'm just reading it. I know that there are videos out there of popping zits that people watch. I can't take those. Those are too much. Because it's something about, like... They're usually like cysts and stuff. They're not even zits. So they're just so over the top and it looks like fucking soft serve coming out. But to a point, I was even on board with this. And then he had to wipe it off the mirror like that. And hold it out. And his friend had to lick his finger.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, you know what? And then, like you said, he's like, some of these are ripe. You want more? And I was like, oh, right. I was thinking about how it was like soft serve, but this is literally soft serve for this guy. Like, that's what he calls it. Sweet. A sweet.
Yeah.
Dislike.
It's a delicacy and he shouldn't indulge himself, especially because this one might be weird.
Dislike. Yeah, he says that anything that's here is poison.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering how he thinks, like, he can walk around and breathe and live. But if he just doesn't eat the pus off this guy's finger, then he'll still be fine. Got news for you, buddy. That's probably not working out for you.
You've got so many tumors in your little weasel body already.
Like, honestly.
Yeah. So these two are friends. Finley shows up. He eats the pus. They like there's weird flashbacks throughout about all the times they've bullshitted in the past. And like kind of basically just fleshing out their friendship. Finley is a really interesting character. He is really good at being the head of security here at this prison. Because he's head of security, Pimley is kind of like the director, like he's the warden, like the boss. And like Finley is also weirdly proud of being able to read and like being well versed in human literature.
Yeah.
And there's this weird moment when they run into Dinky as they're walking down the mall. And like Finley tries to engage him into a literature conversation.
I honestly, like, again, I'm supposed to... This guy is a bad dude, and yet I'm over here feeling sorry for him.
I know, no, me too. That was my point. Is like, it's so strange how, like... And then there's that moment later on where they're in the breaker room. I'm skipping all over the place right now, I'm sorry. But they're in the breaker room
fine.
and and like they're talking like almost telepathically, and Pimley like wonders how. Earlier in the chapter, he's wondering like how, if he could ever be able to read Finley by his eyes, but like when they're in the breakers, he's like, how could I ever have thought that was hard to do? I know exactly what he's thinking, and you just want him to kiss, like.
I think that might be just you.
It might just be me.
But that's fine.
But, like, I just kind of... even if they don't, like, it's really sweet. And I think it's a really, you know... It's a really great way of humanizing villains, is to kind of show us what they're like with their friends and their loved ones. You know?
Yeah.
So it's... I don't know. It's just... Friends feels a little bit less cheap than loved ones, you know? Like, it's like... If you show a villain and you want to humanize it, and it's like, oh, here's his infant daughter or whatever, like, that feels like, oh, okay, I know what you're doing, book or movie.
Yeah, I see what you mean there. Like, it's just, oh, well, look, he has something to lose, or there are stakes for him, or there are people who love him, and he loves them, and he's capable of love.
Right.
Doesn't that change everything? And it's like, not really.
Yeah, but, like, the chapter goes out of its way, not just with the friendship between the two of them, but to show that Pimley really does think he's doing the right thing, and he really does care about all these people, and, like, there's a whole bit where they talk about what he lobotomized somebody who was being mean to the breakers.
Yep.
And it's like, he seems like a genuinely nice guy in a lot of ways, except for the ending the world thing.
You know, that whole detail.
Right. I don't know. I really like it. I like this chapter a lot.
I also, like, not for nothing, but the whole idea of, like, trying to end the world, it's such a huge concept that it's hard for me to even be that mad about it. Because I just don't see that I would care once it's done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose not. I think, you know, no heaven might be disappointing, but...
If that's true.
Then
I don't know. If there were a heaven, that might be more disappointing for me, Miles. I think it depends on where you're looking from. I'm just saying.
I could totally see, like, you showing up being like, what the fuck is this shit? Like...
Just being like, oh, fuck. This is not the thing I was excited about.
You and I would go to heaven and then, like, immediately start critical blogs.
Oh my god.
About, like, heaven society.
I'm just, it's sort of like, you know, the whole idea of the world ending, there's no real concept of what that means that's been presented that makes it seem that scary to me. And that's always been the case with, like, you know, even things like Buffy and whatnot. They talk about, like, the end of the world, or so-and-so is going to rule and that just doesn't really hold, because it's just oblivion. And so what? So then I'm oblivious. That's, like, the point of that word. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So...
It's sort of like when I got in an argument about abortion with somebody the other day, and they were like, you should just be glad your mother didn't abort you. And I'm like, I don't know what to say to that, to be honest.
Like, I wouldn't care if she had.
Yeah, you know, if she did, I'd just kind of be like, not knowing about it.
Right. Yeah,
so,
I've been somebody else, like...
There's not really much to be argued there. So yeah, I have to say that, like, as much as I understand in concept, the fact that he wants to end the world is bad. But, like, really, I don't have any investment in him wanting to do that. There's nothing in me that's going, we need to stop this man.
Right.
I want the gunslingers to win. That's all there is to it. It's nothing about me caring about the outcome of this thing. It's just about the people and whose side I'm on, personally.
Well, and the interesting thing...
It's very petty, if I'm being honest about it.
The interesting thing about it to me is if you could get a straight answer out of him, what do you think Roland would have to say on the subject? Because I feel like the end of the world to Roland, like everything else, is secondary to the tower. And he wants to stop these guys less to save the world, as apparently has been written in fucking prophecy, because of course it has, and more about, like, if they knock down the tower, I'll never get to climb it.
That's true. I can't care about that either, though. Like, it's so abstract.
Care about, like, his quest?
Yeah. Like, he wants to climb the tower. Well, sorry. I guess you're not gonna get to.
Well, no, I know, but
shit happens. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, there's a part of me that just wishes that I had more of an... If it turned out, like, everybody, when the world ends, will be plunged into eternal suffering forever. Which is kind of what they were saying with the Prim, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
If they nailed that a little harder...
Yeah.
That, I think, would make me, like, care more. Like, the idea of everybody just living under eternal torment and torture because they're stuck in an in-between of, like, the terrible nothingness and void of reality and their own world. All right, I can get on board with that. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm against it.
I guess what I'm saying, though, I think it's really interesting that King has these two chapters right next to each other, because we get this super humanizing view of the people trying to end the world, and then we get immediately after that a chapter that, like, tonally and thematically is all about kind of reminding you that Roland has sacrificed people before on this thing that he's doing and will again.
That's true.
And it's kind of it's a weird, like, you know, we're about to get into the showdown of some kind, and it's an interesting reminder that, like, A, the people on the other side are human, and B, Roland's not the best when it comes to, like, morality.
That is one way to say that.
So, I don't know. I think it's really interestingly structured, and I really enjoy the chapter inside the prison, and I think the chapter outside the prison may be a little bit less so, but it's always nice. I think it's always nice to have that reminder of who Roland is, because sometimes you forget.
Right.
And, well, okay, we'll get there. Let's take this a little bit chronologically, leaving aside stuff we've already covered. So Finley went out to check the alarms because the Ted and Dinky and all them, when they were spiriting the gunslingers away, set something off, and they talked about how they were going to pretend it was a malfunctioning robot, which is what they believe. Right. There was another alarm. It turns out it was set off by Mordred, but of course they didn't find him either, and they figure something just went wrong, because everything's going wrong right now. Mm-hmm. There's a... They walk down, they check the telemetry as well, because Finley really believes in this technology, in, like, you know, surveillance, essentially, right. And really thinks that is, like, the ultimate truth of what's happening, which is interesting because the telemetry leads him to believe that there could never, ever, ever be a teleporter on this place.
Yeah, I kind of didn't understand this, because their concern about the teleporter is that they can, like, bring space and create a hurricane because of the vacuum of space.
So that's one concern about it, I think. I think that's just, like, the most dramatic one. Okay. But it's a weird choice.
Right? Like, yeah. I don't even understand how that works. Like, how do you capture and contain space to bring it anywhere? I always thought teleportation was you went somewhere, or like something, not you bringing a thing somewhere.
Yeah, like something else goes somewhere, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a really weird analogy or I guess not analogy, but like example of a thing you can do. I guess maybe you could, or maybe they just think you could. I don't know. I mean,
maybe it's just like a theoretical thing. You mean?
They're really not. Yeah, they're really not much for superstition, despite Pimley's nightly prayers, or I guess all the time prayers. Because there's the whole thing they mentioned that like. Blah, 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 gunslinger prophecy do come out of the west and save the tower, which that didn't need to be there at all, but sure. And Finley's like, fuck you, that's all bullshit. Like, why you sound like a child. So maybe this idea is like, has been theorized or tested at some point, because otherwise they might not buy it, but...
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, we just get a little, like, segment of the population of the people here, and, there's a couple people just got married, and they're all in love with each other, and, they're just, like, regular folks, and, Pimley clearly has no idea that Ted is up to something.
Right.
And it's really interesting, too, the effects that Ted seems to have on the breakers. He, like, enhances them. But again, we're coming to the end here. It's a repeated motif that, like, well, we actually, the robots haven't come back yet. Maybe something happened, but it's okay. We don't need any more of that stuff, and
right.
If something happens with Ted, we don't really need him anymore. Like, we're at the end game here, is kind of the point that's being driven home. I don't know. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on from our look inside the prison?
I did like that. This is something that I think is seen later on the map, but that it says Pleasantville.
Oh, yeah.
And I almost mentioned Pleasantville when they were describing how cute and pretty everything looked last episode.
Yeah.
But I find that to be, so much of what they have done in terms of their weaponry is based on something else, and I can't help but wonder if that wasn't purposeful also. Like, do people call it that, or was that... just them nicknaming it on the map?
It's interesting because, so obviously this is probably, colored by the movie, which I loved, essentially. By the way, I don't know if you ever saw it, but...
I have, yeah.
I thought it was great. But, I think Pleasantville probably is a result of that, and I kind of think, classic, 50s nuclear family town, right? Like suburbs, right? Whereas with this, I mean, there's definitely a suburban element to it, but the way everything is described reminds me a lot of, a college town.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, what is it? She calls it, Breaker U?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I think that's what she says.
That's what Susanna calls it. And they mention explicitly that the Heartbreak Hotel, which is where the Taheen live...
right.
It looks like a college dorm, basically.
Yeah.
They also mentioned the can toy, as we talked about earlier. So these are the rat-faced dudes with the human masks on who apparently think they'll become human if they wear the mask long enough. I don't know. They're weird dudes.
Yeah. Is that how you say it? Cantoy? I was saying cantois. For some reason I had it being French in my head.
I mean, that's fine if you want to say it that way. I'm not gonna be mad about it.
I just I don't... are they all supposed to just be from different dimensions? Is that, and they got together in this one keystone dimension to do this? Is that well,
the Cantois are definitely they seem like they're related to the Taheen because they say that they're not true Taheen.
He says that. Don't they call them... Aren't those the low men?
Yeah,
right?
Those are the low men.
The same ones.
Yeah.
And he says that he doesn't know who started calling them that. So that's not them that did that.
No, it's
Taheen.
Ted Brodigan who coined the phrase.
Gotcha. Okay, right. Yeah, so how does that work?
Yeah, I don't know.
They're I don't understand this. So you think they're from the same universe?
I feel like the Taheen and the Cantoy are from the same universe. Cantois, sorry. Cantois. Sounds like fucking something from Evil Dead.
It does kind of, actually.
Yeah.
But Yeah, okay. I can go with that.
I don't know.
That's fine.
I'm only going with that because it's like they have the animal heads too, but they're all rats. Like they seem like kind of a subclass,
Right.
and they they're not like the true Taheen, so they have these weird religious beliefs, and they, instead of disdaining humanity, they kind of admire and look up to it, which is interesting because it's like, do all these, like, I guess there must be humans where they come from. I don't know how that works. Yeah, it's all very vague. All of this is like pretty deliberately like, well, there's a bunch of universes, and presumably in one of them there are people with animal heads.
I guess it's like, yeah, all right, go ahead. I was about to draw all kinds of parallels that just, we don't need to go there this time. Let's just,
okay.
You know what?
Wow, this is a first.
I just, sometimes it's not worth the long ride off to the side quest.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to just stay on track.
All right. So the deal with all of this is basically that they're coming to the end. Finley's feeling uneasy about something, and by the end of the chapter, Pimley, who, that, by the way, that's a Taheen name that he was granted in a ceremony of some kind,
right?
Because he's like super close to these people. Pimley manages to convince Finley that everything's going to be fine and that it's all good, and like all your fears are just like, stupid little fears because the end is near, and as he says, you're always most afraid of dropping the eggs when you're almost home, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Pimley wakes up.
I honestly kind of like this because I feel like if they had been able to easily pull one over, that I would have lost respect for him. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he's like just on edge in general, and he keeps feeling like there's something wrong, but he can't put his finger on it. That's just very relatable.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Just this constant low-level anxiety, and you're sure that everything's about to hit the fan, but you don't know how or when or where.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you, guy.
And I really think that, like, when he wakes up in the middle of the night, too, Pimley does. Mm-hmm. Like, after successfully reassuring his buddy that everything's fine, then you wake up in the middle of the night and he's like, oh shit, maybe it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that this was well played, and that, like, and it's weird because there is still so much that King is, like, hand-waving away as, like, well, Jake didn't know how he knew to put his thumb there and open the thing. He just did.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, fine, sure. But then he does something like this where they can really, he can very convincingly explain how this guy simultaneously accepts the false explanation they have offered up and doesn't believe it.
Right.
And I can buy it 100%. Why can't he just be like this all the time? That's all I'm asking. Is perfection always? Is that so hard?
I think that it's just like, I mean, no, clearly not for us, but, maybe for other people. But I think it's just like, yeah, it's shit that he cares about. Like, he cares a lot about making us feel a certain way about these characters, and he really nails it, and he pulls it off, and he just doesn't really give a fuck if we see plot holes in the universe things. Which part of me can understand, because it's like, you're gonna find him anyway. Like, I'm weaving a story here about, like, all this shit happening, multiple universes coming together. It's massive, it's flawed, my human brain couldn't understand it if it was a real thing. Like, fuck it, let's just, just... If I hand wave everything, maybe you won't care.
Right.
But there are some things...
Right.
There are some things, though, and we might as well get in the next chapter, but the fucking thing with Roland finding the tarot card, the Lady of the Shadows card.
Yeah.
That...
Listen. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's finish this, and then we'll get to the next chapter.
Okay.
Because there's a lot that I have problems with in the next chapter,
right.
Unsurprisingly.
Yeah, no, I expected as much.
Yeah, so basically this whole thing is just like a campus tour.
Yeah. And, everybody seems happy. And it's...
Yeah, they do. Except for, the ones that don't.
Right. Except for...
conspiring against them.
Right.
But...
Dinky is just a dick.
God.
But, I just... I don't know if there's anything else to say. I think I also really like the way the Breakers room is kind of done. And they do a really good job of, like... They do a really good job also of fleshing out Ted a little bit here.
Yeah.
And just making it really clear that, like, this guy is something else. He is the only person who's ever escaped. He was brought back on pain of the lives of people he met on his little trip,
right.
Which are people that those who have read Hearts in Atlantis have also met, and he's also, for whatever reason, the most powerful breaker here, and the only one who's allowed to come and go from the room as he pleases because he makes everybody around him stronger. And one thing that I really find interesting, and this will be the last point that I make about this chapter, is that they don't really seem to get how any of this works.
Yeah, that's true. It feels like a bunch of people, like, you know what this is? They're like using a Squarespace website. Where they don't know how to code, and it all just works, and they're
right.
like, yeah, sure, put him there.
Sure, yeah.
That looks good.
The operating system is really good.
But if something happened, they'd have no idea how to fix it, and they'd have to go to customer service.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's really great. Because they keep saying, well, this thing measures something.
The beam's up, it's up there.
Yeah.
It's above us.
Yep. And this here thing, we know for a fact that it means there's no teleportation. Probably measures other stuff, but we know about that.
That's my favorite thing. It could do other... He broke part of it, I think on purpose.
Yeah.
I can't tell. Who knows what it even did that he broke?
Yeah.
Whatever.
And even their description of Ted's powers, it's like, well, we don't really know what he does.
Yep.
But we know that he does it really well, and that when he's around, everybody else does their shit better.
Yeah, it's basically like, listen, we don't know what these do. We don't know what he does. We know he's really strong. We don't know why he broke this thing. We don't know what this measures. The important thing is it's all under control. Like, okay, guys, sure.
Which is great.
Sure,
it's
Jan.
like another way of fooling yourself, right? Like, he's fooling himself into thinking that ending the world could possibly be a good thing.
Yeah.
Regardless of how, of how much we may or may not be ultimately okay with it in the long run. And, and they're fooling themselves that they have this shit locked down.
Yes.
And he says that's when he wakes up in the middle of the night thinking, like, holy shit, I don't know how any of this works. I am surrounded by people with psychic powers.
Yeah,
and I
how about
think
that guy?
All my thoughts are original and not meant to be there, not placed there by somebody. This is all really fucked.
Yeah. So, with that, let's go to chapter 2.
Speaking of everything being really fucked.
And things being placed there that I'm just supposed to believe.
Okay, you want to start?
Moving forward here, forgive me the clicking in the background, guys. Like, I'm trying to move through chapters here in this weird way on my Kindle for my desktop, and it's not super... It's not super user-friendly navigating on this thing. All right. First of all, let's just go there right away.
All right.
To the part you were talking about.
Okay.
With the Lady of Shadows card, tarot card, whatever card. What in the fuck is what? What? He doesn't even find out. He looks at a tarot card and just knows. Is there anything less interesting, story-wise, that you can think of for him to, as a means of him finding out?
That you're
I can't think of anything.
Finding out that Walter is dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can, in your wildest imaginings, anything more anticlimactic and less satisfying and more boring than suddenly he just knew?
I mean, it's like, it's basically like you're writing a script and you set up this big nemesis for Act 3. And, like, somewhere in Act 2, the hero is, like, all of a sudden he's doing something, all of a sudden he like, finds a card, looks at it, he's like, you know what? I feel like that nemesis guy's dead. Huh. And then, like, goes about his day. And he actually is.
And you see it in, like, an after-credits sequence. That the nemesis died in this really, like, embarrassing kind of way, actually.
Oh, God. You know what it reminds me of in a weird way? Even though I love this, I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't like Iron Man 3. And it's one of my favorite Marvel films. But, there's the running thread in Iron Man 3 where he's, like, traumatized because of his experience, like, going into space and almost dying in the Avengers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, like, the script brings it up and then does nothing with it.
And then they just fucking drop it and he's fine now?
Well,
yeah.
No, and then there's the end credit scene where it's revealed that, like, the way he's tried to deal with it is by, like, going to Banner for therapy, even though Banner's not a therapist.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Yes.
That's my favorite fucking thing. Like, again, I understand why people don't like that movie. I just happen to love it. But
I enjoyed it. I like all the Iron Men, though.
Yeah, but I love that bit where it's like, oh yeah, about that. He's going to therapy. He's doing it wrong because he's Tony Stark and he doesn't understand it. But he's going to therapy.
He's trying his best.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of that, but in a less, like, tongue-in-cheek way. It's like, at least that is almost like the writer's like, oh, fuck, I forgot about this.
Right?
This is like, the equivalent in that movie would have been if the movie had forgot about Aldrich Killian and just not brought him back and had him die on screen.
Honestly, he's the worst part of that movie, so he could have done that and I'd been fine with it.
Oh, I love Guy Pearce, though.
He was wasted in that role.
I know, but I love him, though. Sorry, now I'm thinking about Guy Pearce.
Get your head out of your pants, Miles.
Sorry. He's really pretty.
So, he just knows. This is the thing that we're going to do here. I appreciate that we get, like, a hint about these people knowing that the four of them are coming with the, inflatable mattresses, and they have one set up for Oi and the whole thing.
And that makes sense because they're psychic. Right.
When you say they just knew with them, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
But,
Okay, so just, like, digging in this a little bit. So he says, on the last occasion he'd seen that card, it had been in the hands of the man who sometimes went by the name of Walter, sometimes that of Flag. That's the only, like, barest concession to the idea of, like, logical deduction. Mm-hmm. And even then, it's like, okay, so the last time you saw the card, it was with him. There are no other copies of this card that look the same, certainly. He definitely died and didn't lose it or have it taken from him. And the people... And, like, when he died, it ended up here? Because reasons?
Listen.
It's the answer to your question is no. There could be no more anticlimactic way to do this, and it's the worst.
And my favorite... Look at this crazy jump within one paragraph. Walter O'Dim, his old nemesis, was dead. Roland had known it as soon as he saw the face of the Lady of Shadows. Soon one of his own would die as well. Oh, what? Oh. Okay. And you know that King keeps on being like, well, the quartet's gonna fall. Somebody's gonna die. One of them's gonna die. You know what? It's gonna be like one of Susanna's personalities that dies. It's not even going to be one of them. It's going to be some fake out, and I am going to be so irritated.
I also love they straight up say, like,
it never occurred to Roland that he might be the one who was going to die.
Well, I like that, but I also like later on where they're actually talking about the Kashum thing, and Roland says to Jake, like, you got this feeling when you and Callahan, like, went into the thing, right? And, like, you were okay.
Right.
Or something like that. What does he say?
I'm looking... You'll find it faster than me. What am I doing?
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm trying to find the other thing because there was... So... First, this is when we get into the thing of them all, like, just knowing about weapons.
Yeah, which I actually was fine with.
And that's the thing, is that we know that they're gunslingers. They can load bullets into a gun in, like, a split second. Like, this has been established that Roland has an aptitude and understanding of guns that is just not human. Mm-hmm. It's just not normal. So, you want to do that with this? Then fine. With guns... Yeah. But then the Sneetches, that's, then we're just doing the thing again. We have Harry Potter on the box. That's fun.
Yeah, he's right there. And did you like the, what was it? Harry Potter model, serial number 465-17-CC ND-JKR. Of course. Right. Don't mess with the 449. We'll kick the Slytherin out of you.
I enjoy it.
I enjoy it too. I just want to know where, like, kick the Slytherin out. Why Slytherin there?
It doesn't make any sense, and that's kind of why I like it, is that it's like, was written by some corporate talking head that didn't read the books and kind of doesn't get it, and just is like, I don't know, Slytherin's bad, right?
That one sounds like a good word. Slap on the label.
Yeah. It's like if somebody just did some really half-assed, like, Superman pun, and they had no idea what they were talking about.
It just really makes me wonder, though, like how J.K. Rowling, like, ties in with all this. Like, what... Does she know... Like, is she, like, an arms dealer?
Lol.
I mean, I'm just saying... Like, why...
Maybe she's the insane Crimson King.
Oh, shit.
Dun. How hilarious would that be, though, if, like, King was really pissy that her sales were outstripping his, and he was like, you know what I'm going to write? I'm going to write a book where I'm writing the fate of the universe, but it's all being thwarted by that fucking Harry Potter bitch. Except she's crazy because bitches be crazy.
Oh, God. Well, I happen to know he's a big fan, so...
I think I figured it out, Miles. Yeah. I think I got it.
I know.
So, wrap this podcast up.
All right, well, shit. I mean, Natasha is officially has guessed the biggest spoiler in the books, y'all. So I think we can just stop here.
Lol.
Yeah. So they know all about the Sneetches too, which is bullshit. They even know, like, they see two buttons, one of them marked S and one of them marked W, and Jake's like, set and wait, right? And they're like, yeah, totally, man. It's like, of course.
It's fine. Sure. Why not?
So, yeah, the other thing happening here is that they're all getting this Kashum feeling descending around them, where it's like this gloom and doom. What I was saying earlier is that Roland says to Jake, didn't you done feel the Kashum for both of you? When you were in the Dixie Pig? And Jake's like, yeah, I did. And so Roland's like, yeah, there you go. Like, just because we feel like somebody's going to die doesn't actually mean somebody's going to die. So he's got, like, a back door.
Jake just needs to not trust this guy is what it comes down to. But that's not going to happen, because the whole thing is that he trusts him implicitly despite it all. Oh, Jake.
Oh, Jake.
You sweet summer child.
Yeah, right. I guess really the last thing, besides them finding the guns, they also find a bunch of, like, tape recorder type shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Susanna has a big ol', like, quad for her to roll around in now, which is pretty sweet.
That's rad. I really like that. Although it's a try.
Oh, it's a try?
Because there's 3 wheels,
Sorry.
yeah.
All right, well, whatever.
Because Eddie keeps calling it her trike.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I had a quad in my mind. That's just what it looked like to me. But yeah, either way, no matter how many wheels, it is a serious upgrade. And
Yes.
she's really happy about it.
Yeah, I have to admit that, like, if you're going to need to wage war on somebody and you haven't got any legs, you really cannot do better than that kind of machine. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the other thing. When they're doing their, like, surveillance, and everybody just knows that the house is made of wood. Again. And there's, like, a little discussion about it. Like, maybe not. Maybe it's just made to look like wood to fool people who would try to blow it up. But it really isn't a question. It just seems like kind of a perfunctory, oh, they're not totally sure, but they are. And we know they're going to be right. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, the one thing I did like here, though, is that I forgot about Mordred, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it turns out that
Easy to
Mordred's
do.
the one that killed this coyote that's howling in the background.
Yeah, which makes Oi sit up going like, what's up? What's up, motherfucker?
Yeah. Motherfucker!
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't remember what the significance of the wood thing is, or if it has any. I mean, it probably does, but I don't remember what it is. I mean, I guess I'm a little more cool with that one just because, like, they have good eyesight and they can... I don't know. I mean, the way it's written is, like, they talk it out briefly, but they don't come to the conclusion of like, okay, based on the evidence, that's wood.
Right.
They're like, okay, it would make sense for it not to be wood, but it is.
Yeah.
Because
that's kind of what it comes down to.
So I get that. I do. And then we get this conversation and this kind of ritual ceremony or whatever that Roland's doing. Where he tells everybody he loves them, and they tell him that they love him as well. And even Oi gets in on this action.
That was adorable.
Which is great. Jake is the only one to, like, say I love you to Roland before he says it to them, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. I get it. They have we're connected.
They're father and son, pretty much officially at this point. Like, the narrative's made
Yep.
it very clear. And, of course, this happens, again, this chapter reminds us about Roland dropping Jake.
Of course.
Because it has to. And, also, there's a part that I found interesting that I didn't remember from the first time, which is, after all this goes down, he goes around the circle telling everybody he loves them and doing a ritual drinking of Perrier with them.
It's Perrier, sir.
I'm sorry, Perrier.
You're not doing anything French today, Miles. What's the matter with you?
Welcome to the French Pronunciation Podcast. My name is Miles, and she's Natasha, and she's pronounced French before, and I have not. So let's.
I haven't, I guess I have, but, not really.
Not really.
Nobody should listen to me, is what I'm saying.
I'm gonna have to really start learning French soon, actually.
Why?
Because we're planning on we're saving up for a trip to Paris.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fancy.
Right. Oh yeah. So the part I was talking about earlier is after all this happens, Susanna says, "What's the plan?" And it says she
Right.
didn't call him Sugar, never called him that or any other endearment ever again, so far as Jake was aware. Just found that interesting. Not entirely sure what it means, but I found it interesting.
It doesn't mean anything, because I don't trust anything anymore, ever. That's where we're at now.
Okay.
In our relationship with this book.
All right, and then he's about to talk about his plan, and then we go back to Mordred briefly, and Mordred is hoping that all of them die except for Roland, because he wants to kill Roland.
Because he's such a petty little bitch.
Yeah.
Mordred, get a life. Am I wrong?
Nope.
He's just following him, being like, yeah, I hope you all die. He's like Kylo Ren with, like, a fucking dead coyote. He's just got nothing better to do except
man.
sit around and try and rule the world for no reason except that he's mad at his dad.
I find Kylo Ren vastly more interesting than this character.
That's fair. I also do, but you know.
But I can see the comparison.
comparable.
Yeah.
Yeah, more like I'm just fucking bitter, man, about Walter. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Like, it would take a lot for me to not be mad that he killed Walter the way he did. And this isn't even approaching like 20% of what it would, what he would have to have done.
Yeah, it's like, it's for all that, I don't know, like I do really like that chapter with Pimley and Finley and everything. And I like that, you know, they're relatable. I like that they're a different kind of villain, and that there's the whole transition, the contrast is happening between the lightness inside the villains and the darkness inside the hero, and like I appreciate all of that, but like at the same time, it's like, dude, you could have just put Roland, or you should just put Walter in that fucking prison. Like, it would have been real easy. You could even have had like Walter be the guy in charge, like the asshole in charge, and these two dudes like be a step below him.
Right.
And, like, be friends and still have the whole thing and, like, still have the whole, you know, because, like, Walter comes and goes and usually leaves them in charge. There's a lot of things you could do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, like, it's frustrating because Walter fits into this story. You can see where he goes.
Mm-hmm.
And King just opted to fucking cut him out of it. And it's, like, it's... And to have that shitty little fucking Roland acknowledgement, like, that's just like, I really didn't care about this character, y'all. Just in case you were wondering, really didn't give a shit.
I just don't, like, I was really thinking that at the very least, even though he didn't die in an interesting or worthy way, that Roland finding out he was dead would be interesting and worthy.
Yeah.
I don't think I even realized that I had that expectation, but I did.
You said something about it, though. Didn't you say something last episode about that?
I say all kinds of shit. Don't listen to me. I don't know.
That's true. That's a good point.
But, like, I just can't get over how much of a finger King is giving everybody. Like, I just don't even know what to make of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I know, I do. And it's really tough asking your readership to care about the ending of the story when it's so clearly diverging from what it seems like it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like asking people to care about the fucking White Hunt in season 7 of Game of Thrones.
Oh,
it's like,
right, yeah.
Not only is it stupid, but like, we know there's a better story here, and you're just doing this. And I don't know why you're doing this, but like, surely you can see that this is shitty. But whatever, you're doing it.
I just feel like he decided somewhere that what we all claimed to care about wasn't actually what we like, that we were like lying to him or something. I don't even know how to phrase what I'm feeling, but it feels like King doesn't trust his readers or something. I'm having difficulty like trying to get across what I'm trying to say here.
Mm-hmm. No, I can understand. Doesn't trust his readers.
You know what I'm saying?
I think I do. I think it's like, so there's a few different ways I feel like we can go with it, and like, I know we talked a lot about this last episode, but it's a big thing to just get rid of what had been pretty much the primary antagonist of the series to this point.
Right.
You know, though he had been kind of hanging out in the background for a while, he still was that.
Right.
And it's almost as though I feel like you can read it a few different ways, because you can read it as like he doesn't think the old stuff was good enough. Like it can be seen as sort of a what's the word? Like an insecurity. Mm-hmm. Like I have to throw in all this cool new shit because the shit I was working with before isn't good enough, and like nobody cares. So like there's not trusting your readers to be invested.
So it's not that he doesn't trust his readers, it's that he felt like he was failing his readers.
Well, that's one interpretation. The other interpretation is that he doesn't trust his readers to have a certain attention span. Like, or maybe he thought...
That's a crazy thing to not trust when you're writing the 7th book in a series.
Yeah, but like maybe he thought it had been too long since Wizard and Glass. Maybe when he first started in with Wolves, he was like, I have to basically write this as something new because like I'm trying to attract new people because the old people have probably moved on. I don't know. I can't explain it because it seems like such a it seems like such a bizarre decision, and it's been building up to this. Like the Susanna being pregnant, that story starts at the beginning of book 5. So that's
right.
When he came back to the series. So it's clear that he was feeling from the start of book 5, I think, it seems that way to me, like he was prepping for a new villain because he didn't think his villain was good enough.
Right.
And what's truly bizarre about that to me, what makes the least sense, is prior to book 5, Walter was the only link to King's other work, really.
Yeah.
This is before Callahan.
That's true.
It's before all this other shit. So, like, Walter secretly being Flag, and I think, again, I mentioned this last week, but Walter secretly being Flag is, like, the thing that starts off the idea that all his universes are linked together. So the other thing I'm wondering is if maybe he felt like the central villain of the piece couldn't come from something else he wrote? Like, because Roland is a unique character to this story, like the villain also had to be. But I don't know. It's like... It really does just feel like he didn't think Walter was a good enough character. Like, he didn't think Walter was an appropriate villainous foil and payoff to the end of the story. And Walter needed to be replaced because Walter was just not that character. And I really think that most of us were like, no, yes, he is.
Yeah.
You know? Like, he's like...
It's interesting that you're saying, like, because I like that idea that he felt like it shouldn't have been the same villain as a villain in another book.
Yeah.
But it also is so foolish for him to have the whole thing, like, the whole plot revolving around how he's the writer and he wrote this universe and all these other places and it popped up all the time. Oh, but I can't have my villain be from another book. That's literally the entire thing. Is that you're writing this world without realizing that you're writing this world. Having the villain be from another book would make 100% sense.
True.
That would actually tie things together better than doing what he did. If he at least did, this is the other thing. Okay, so fucking fine. Mordred kills Walter. Why couldn't he, like, absorb Walter permanently? In a real way, where Walter was still here, but part of Mordred. And so there was like this monstrous spider character with the mind and memories permanently of Walter and the like malice that Walter had towards Roland. So you get rid of Walter as his own thing, but huge elements of him are still there, still linked. And it makes Mordred way scarier. Because Mordred's not really scary, except that he's a spider and that's scary.
I like spiders.
But he doesn't really intimidate me.
No, especially
I like spiders too. Honestly, I've never been somebody who's like afraid of spiders, but I'm not going to be excited about a 4-foot spider.
He's also being portrayed as this like pathetic child. Like, it doesn't help that he's just like this petty kid that nobody. I don't, like you said, like I don't feel intimidated by him at all.
No,
like I feel like, and this is not, you know, this is not me knowing what happens to him, like or revealing that, but like at this point in the book, if I'm reading here and like the next chapter was like, oh, Roland and Mordred ran into each other and Roland killed him, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds right. Mm-hmm. Like that's just how it would end. Like Mordred is hiding and starving and hiding from fucking Finley and killing dogs to survive, and it's like, and there's this whole bit about how he's like huddling outside, you know, like relishing his own misery, and it's like, dude, this is not how you build up a villain. Because like, this guy is just pathetic. Yeah, I can see a Walter spider. I mean, that would at least have been a thing. But like, I think what the biggest problem, I think, in replacing Walter with Mordred as a villain is that, you know, it's kind of like you feel like this is what the whole Susanna's pregnancy angle that we fucking hated and that didn't need to be there and that was really done poorly a lot of the time and, you know, had its interesting elements, but like, again, super didn't need it.
Yep.
Like, the whole reason for that, when you find out that the whole reason for doing that is because we needed to replace fucking Walter, who were just, like, kicking to the curb in, you know, a third of the way through the book with nobody knowing or caring that he's dead.
Right.
It's like, that's why we did this. Because you thought that we needed the new villain, and this is the guy you chose over the dude who appears...
Who you've developed from the very first... That's the first sentence.
Yeah, the first sentence. The Man in Black are the first words of the series. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know what he's thinking here.
It's really frustrating, and it really, I think, is...
But I will tell you one thing. It encourages me as a writer a lot to see somebody with his skill set fuck up like this. Just saying it.
I can see that. Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely.
Petty ass bitch over here. It's fine. All right. So we've talked about that ad nauseum. I'm sorry, everybody. I just I keep this reveal is just so. And then the thing with. Okay. Mordred, his POV section suddenly goes into this weird present tense, like third person. I'm going to read it. Mordred was born with a fair amount of inbred knowledge, it seems. He knows, for instance, that his red father, possessed of such information as Mordred now has, would have sent word of the gunslinger's presence at once to the Devartois master or security chief. He knows, for instance, it's present tense.
Yeah.
He now understands what the gunslingers are about. They have come here to break the breakers. He could stop it, true, but Mordred feels no interest in his red father's plans or ambitions. Then... then why should I? You know? I don't care either then. I thought the whole thing was that he was going to be teaming up and that crazy Crimson King was going to have somebody sane, sure, power hungry and probably bent on eventually killing him, but sort of sane on his side. But no, he doesn't care. I just don't get. What he most truly enjoys, he's discovering, is the bitter loneliness of outside. of watching with the cold interest of a child watching life and death and war and peace through the glass wall of the ant farm on his bureau.
Fucking boring.
How am I supposed to give a shit about this guy?
He's so boring. Like, this is not... No, I can't give you any advice there, Natasha, because I don't give two shits about this dude at all. He's just like... He's like the fucking... The worst, like, emo kid. This reads like fucking poetry that, like, I might have written during my goth phase.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, if I was the kind of goth who wrote poetry, which I wasn't. I was barely a goth at all, to be honest. It was really more of an aesthetic thing, and I wasn't really feeling it. Anyway,
methinks you protest too much, sir.
The point is that he's just like, life is pain. I like that nobody cares about me. I revel in being on the outside, looking at them like the ants they are, and just, I think it's great. I have the cold interest of a child watching life and death and war and peace through the glass wall of my ant farm. I am detached and badass. And it's like, to anybody who's not 15, like, you're just a fucking stupid kid.
He also calls Roland, in the end, Big White Caw Daddy. Which is just not okay in any way. Nothing about that is something that I like. I don't want any of it. I disapprove of all of it. And King should rethink it. Dislike.
Go into the corner and think about what you did.
Put words in front of other words and fucking hyphenate them and have a new thing. Stop it. Caw Daddy. Shut up.
I guess what I'm trying to say here, besides the fact that Caw Daddy is fucking stupid, is like, this is all... The way Mordred is written contains all the signifiers of somebody who is super fucking basic and, like, thinks that the sudden revelation that the world doesn't revolve around them makes them special, and means they've seen some sort of enlightenment.
You just called him basic. That's amazing.
He is.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I'm not criticizing you. Just, there it is.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Hashtag basic Mordred. That's the next postcard.
Yeah, somebody please draw a spider with an infinity scarf and a Starbucks cup. And, of course, a baby face. I feel bad that I have spent the last 2-3 episodes just shitting all over this series. But it's not the series, it's this one.
It's a big thing.
There was so much promise.
It's a big thing. And, like, I'm trying to say, like, he's still doing some good writing here. I do really like the chapter with with Pimley and Finley. Like, I'm not making that up, but... like, I want to start a social media campaign to make him rewrite this book.
Can you imagine? I just can't, like... If authors started to do that, people just, like, enough people pressure them and they just started to rewrite. What a precedent that would set. Oh my God, nobody would have a moment's peace.
Oh Lord, that would be insane. Nobody do this. This is a terrible idea.
I just don't, I really wish in some ways that I had been around when this book came out to see what people thought of it. Because it was such an enormous series and so influential, and people were waiting on the edge of their seats for it. And I feel like me reading it for the first time, you know, there are things that you want to relive about your favorite series, and that's why Unspoiled is a popular podcast series. But is this something that you guys enjoy listening to? Me just being angry about things that you were angry about like a decade ago? Does this do anything? Is this what you're here for?
Are you not
entertained?
Are you not
entertained? I just don't. I want to, like, be apologetic that I hate it so much, and then I'm like, maybe that's what people wanted. Maybe people knew I was going to be pissed and were excited for me to just be angry. Because I know that's what a lot of people were excited about for the end of Penny Dreadful. When I got to the finale, people were, like, waiting for me to flip my shit, which I did. Have you watched to the end yet?
No. I'm early season 2, Witch Lady is bathing in blood and shit.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that scene so much.
Yeah, it's fucking great. Anyway, yeah, I think people do like that, though. Like, I know there's a lot of people who have been participating in the spoiler chat with me that, like, totally agree on this specific subject. Like, okay. I don't think... I mean, there might be a couple of people who are okay with it, and I don't think they're wrong for being okay with it, but as I recall, like, most people in that chat are like, yeah, the Walter thing's bullshit. Like, it just is. And I do... First of all, I think that, of course, the internet tends to love, like, people getting mad about shit. Like, it's crack cocaine to a lot of folks. But beyond that, like, yeah, I think the interesting journey here, at least for me, will be seeing whether or not you can be seeing, like, if there's a return for you, you know what I mean? Like, if there's a point over the course of the story where you're back in. Because that was kind of my experience reading this book, is being really surprised when that moment came.
Okay.
So for me, there's a point, and when it happened, I was like, "Holy shit! How? Really? I'm back? Really? I'm back in?"
Okay.
So, like, I'm very curious to see if and when that happens for you, and I think most other people are too. But yeah, I don't see how, like, again, no offense to anyone for their opinions, but I don't see how you could possibly be okay with Walter just going away like this.
Yeah,
it really bothers me, and I think that I think that's because you really enjoy the series and you don't want to see it end on such a fucking whimper. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, and like, it's not like I haven't seen the series, like book or TV, building up a villain to then suddenly take him out completely and have that be sort of entertaining. There is a series that I am thinking of right now where a lot of people got mad about it, but most people whom I trust their taste, and also myself and Owen, all felt like it was kind of a brilliant move that somebody got built up as being the big bad, and then it turned out that is not at all who it was. I thought it was great. Lots of people didn't. It's going to be a divisive thing no matter how you do it. But this, if that's what he wanted, was not how you do it. And I don't even feel like that's what he wanted. I don't even feel like this was purposeful in, I'm going to subvert their expectations. I think you're right. It was insecurity, which is a shame. You don't get 7 books in and then start doubting what you're doing. There's no way to live. There's no way to write.
I mean, it's similar in some ways to, like, Ned Stark getting offed, right? Like, I can see a similarity there in terms of, it's like, whoa, didn't see, like, that's a subversion of trope, right? Because we've been building this guy up as the main character, and all of a sudden he's dead, and now we continue the story without him, but it's like, but this doesn't feel like a subversion of trope, because Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire is very much about putting a little bit of realism back into your fantasy. Mm-hmm. It's very much about, like, hey, let's do the things you all like to do with the dragons and the sword fighting and the castles and everything, but let's make it a little bit more like, oh shit, this actually happened or could have happened.
Right.
And sometimes when you're doing that, it's like, yeah, the person that you've been following for a while does sometimes just die because he made a mistake. Like, that's the world. But this story, and especially at this point in the story, feels so narratively unrealistic, and deliberately so. You know, it feels very much like this is all happening for a reason, and we went and met the writer of this book, and, like, everything... This is the kind of story where you feel like everything should tie itself together really well, and, like, where you feel like... I don't know, it's the kind of thing where, you know, again, I'm reading Song of Susanna, and I'm totally willing to suspend my disbelief. I realize that not everyone is, but I was totally willing to suspend my disbelief in Song of Susanna, because it's like that was the kind of story he was writing. It was the kind of story with fate and destiny and, like, twins and balance and all this shit. And to then just remove one of the major players feels like kind of it feels like a betrayal of the symmetry that King thinks he's writing in.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like we are promised a story where everything ties back together, and where, like, the narrative threads that go together do have a satisfying ending, because that's the kind of story this is, because it's a story that knows it's a story. That to just, like, throw in this kind of like, oh, well, that guy's dead.
Listen, can we also talk about the fact that I was willing to suspend my disbelief with Song of Susanna, but I wasn't excited about it. I didn't like the demon pregnancy thing. I didn't care for this whole... And I hung on because I had faith that it was going to turn into something interesting. And it fucking did the opposite. It not only turned into something uninteresting, it killed something that was interesting.
Yeah.
It has had a negative output of interest.
Yes, I agree.
To me.
I agree.
That's just unforgivable. Like...
And, you know...
I hate supernatural pregnancy stuff most of the time anyway. If you are going to do it, you better fucking do it. And he didn't. And I'm just I feel really, like, personally offended that I set aside my feelings on that and got let down so hard.
You were definitely less willing to go there than I was, I think. And, yeah, and even me, like, I was totally on board. Like, I was fine with going along for the ride and just doing the thing. But, like, but again, that feels like such a, like, you feel bad about this because you were reluctantly dragged along based on the hope that it would go somewhere interesting. And I feel bad about this because I was engaged and invested and, like, really, you know, into the idea of this being a certain kind of story, because that's what it seemed like it was, the kind of story where you do suspend your disbelief and where you do just go along for the ride and, you know, the writer in that instance is making a certain implicit promise of giving you a certain kind of ending or a certain kind of narrative, it seems to me. And then it just turns around and goes like, no, you can't actually have that. You know, like, this is the kind of story where, like, the man in black should be in the last line too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, for someone who was totally, who said, okay, fine, Steven, like, let's go, like, let's do this. You're throwing out the rules, let's see where you go. And it's like, oh, well, now we're back to, I don't know about realism, because the dude got eaten by a mutating baby spider who's also the Antichrist, but... You know, but just not delivering on what feels like a pretty major promise.
All right, so we've just chewed this so hard. I'm sorry, everybody. You're probably ready to shoot us. We just really keep on, like, making variations of the same argument here. I don't think that either of us are in. There's no. We're trying to convince each other of something we both already agree on. So I'm gonna go ahead and read new patrons while you decide whether or not we should read 2 or 3 chapters next week.
That sounds great.
Okay. So new patrons this week. Simon Jescold. I hope I'm saying that remotely correct. I'm sure it's not absolutely right. I would love it to be like 30% right, because this alphabet isn't even English. But Simon, welcome. Julika Me, Sherry Carol Mays, Jean-Marie Tomlin, Anne Reinke, Julia Amorose, and Christina Connolly all became patrons this week. Thank you all so much, and we love you. and you're amazing. If you haven't already, join the Facebook group. And also, in the last episode, I mentioned Slack. Well, surprise, I'm not doing that. I'm doing Discord, which Miles brought up just before we went on the air last time, and I yelled at him for confusing my brain after I had decided on Slack. But the truth is that Slack is just, it's so businessy that I could understand why people weren't like gravitating towards it as like a social thing. And Discord just has a sort of friendliness to it. It's much easier to set up, in terms of it's connected with Patreon. So if you're a patron, you will, there is a link posted that I just put up 2 days ago. And if you go into your settings on Patreon, you can connect your Discord to your Patreon account, and that will be so much easier for me. So I really, really ask you to do that if you do decide to join the Discord group. Because it will help sort everybody according to pledge tier in the Discord group, and that way I can make channels that are exclusively for certain tiers. Otherwise, you won't show up as any tier, and if I weed people out in any way, you won't be able to get into any of those channels. So yeah, do me a favor, do yourself a favor. Patrons only Discord seems to be bebopping along. It's not super busy yet, but it only started this week, so I feel like that's not so bad. And there's all kinds of stuff in there beyond just like the show. There's a whole section with the show chats that are spoiler and then no spoiler versions. And then we have just the lounge where people just go to chat, movies, news and politics, other podcasts, therapist couch, where I think is probably going to get some traction after a while, where people are going to go and talk about dealing with like heavy shit that they don't want to talk about on their private feeds necessarily. Sports, fitness, money, and my wedding, which I am, we're 2 years out. We're going to get married in the year 2020, but people have been asking about it. And I also had a bunch of people in the patrons only cocktail hour ask me to make a GoFundMe for my wedding. I felt really weird about it. And then I did my taxes yesterday and I realized that I'm in debt a lot to the IRS, and paying for a wedding is going to be real hard. So I bit the bullet and made that GoFundMe, and it's gofundme.com/unspoiledwedding. So, if you all are feeling moved to give me a wedding gift, by all means. But yeah, that's not like, I don't want anybody to feel pressured to donate to that, because GoFundMe is often used for people in dire situations who really, really need emergency help. And that is not what this is. But I was asked to create one, and you know what? I am not going to say no to help. Because I would like to have a wedding. And that's sure as fuck not going to happen on my current budget. So, but yeah, if you guys want to become patrons, go to patreon.com/unspoiled, pledge whatever you like, join Discord, and then go into Patreon and link your Discord up with your account, and it'll all be sweet and awesome. And I think there was, and I just recorded my very first bonus Rashawn and Me episode. We're doing, for $20 and up patrons, we're doing a bi-weekly special bonus episode called Unsober, where we just talk about like a different subject every week. And this week's subject, unsurprisingly, was being sick. And what it was like when we were kids, what it's like now that we're adults, our hang-ups, and the weird little things that we kind of secretly like about being sick that make us feel better. And also, we read a crazy advice column question that is one of the, all advice column questions, by their very nature, are somewhat salacious and almost beyond belief. But this one feels simultaneously beyond belief and also very real, and it's upsetting. So, yeah, if you are interested in checking that out, I'm going to be posting the first ever of those episodes publicly for people to check out. And I haven't decided if I'm going to do it on the feeds of all of my different shows as its own thing, or if I'll post a link and just have it like on the website. But I'll keep you all posted on that once I decide. And, you know, everybody will be able to listen to that first one and just get a feel for what the show is going to be like. It's a preliminary one. We don't really have like the format nailed down. It's shorter than they're probably going to be in the future. And we also both aren't drinking because I'm sick and it's the middle of the day and she has to go out after. But from here on out, we're going to be recording these at night and we're going to be getting drunk. So,
fun.
You know. All right. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to mention on that. Unsobered, $20 and up patrons coming to a podcast feed or website near you. Miles, take it away.
Y'all can find links to everything that I am doing and have done over at mjschneiderman.com. That's mjschneiderman.com, including Smash Fiction, which is the other podcast that I do, where we put fictional characters into some sort of conflict with one another. I'm guessing that by the time this comes out, we will either be gearing up to release or have already released our match between Hero Protagonist from Snow Crash and Sombra from Overwatch. So that's coming up. And we do Extraordinary League once a month. And then the other, we do alternating like Smash Fiction with Extraordinary League and then with like another kind of fun, more collaborative podcast that we do. We usually like switch up the game we play. So we recently came out with the new episode of Surprise Party, which is when we all draft a team of fictional characters, in this case to defeat the Empire in A New Hope. So that's a good time. Nice. And we're actually doing a buddy of mine, Matthias, who's a big fan of Smash Fiction. He and I and Claire Mulcairn of our podcast are doing a surprise party panel at an upcoming convention. So that's going to be fun. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff happening over on Smash Fiction. You can check me out also on the Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, which is the show that I host and produce for money about people telling stories from their lives on specific themes. So go check that out. Tell your friends about that. We're still trying to build the audience for that one, so any and all help would be appreciated. You can find some of my writing work over at my science fiction blog, www.universesofthemind.com. No comment. And, hey, I said no comment.
Listen, guys, if you want some really high quality Miles emo goth phase poetry, check out Universes of the Mind.
Whoa, now. Whoa. Okay, first of all, don't be promising people something they want and then they can't have it. Because you know that would be in high demand.
I'm just saying. I'm just trying to motivate you to post it all. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't write poetry. I was being serious.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking hate poetry. I think it's a
I believe you.
Poetry is a bastardization of language, and I don't care who knows I think that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe you.
I did used to wear crosses though. It was really embarrassing.
Oh God.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, universesofthemind.com, and yeah, I think that's about it. Part 2 of my appearance on Everything Is Awesome is out now, so check that out. We get into a bit of a political conversation in part 1, and the kind of part 2 of that conversation is in part 2. So if you were interested all in that, probably just want to listen to it so you can like rake me over the coals for not agreeing with you, but like that's fine. You can go listen to that if you want to. Natasha, I know I warned you about Dark Tower spoilers in that one. Jeff assures me that anything that was in there has been edited out. So if you care to listen to it, it should be safe for you. If not, that's fine. It's mostly a show about like me and who I am and what I believe. So if that interests you, then go check out Everything Is Awesome. If that doesn't interest you, then at least check out the episodes that aren't with me, because like he has interesting people on the show. I'm just not one of them. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I think we're good. Oh, and Natasha, let's do one chapter next week.
Ooh.
Because I think it's long enough. I'm a little bit worried that that there won't be as much to say on it as I think there might be, but it's long enough and dense enough that I think it'll carry a whole episode on its own, and the whole thing kind of works out better if we just do one this coming week.
Okay. All right. Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm fine with it.
It's a long chapter.
Yeah. All right. His chapters are very inconsistent.
Yes, they are.
Which is fine. I don't feel like chapters should be any certain length, but it does make a podcast a little tricky.
Yeah, right.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the show and our, constant circling and jerking off about the same thing for 20 minutes. But we'll see you next week with another chapter where hopefully we don't do that for as long. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.